Alright, Trickies and Trickers, time for final episode review of the day, which is The Collaborator. In an orb experience, Vedic Borelli exits the Bajoran Temple on Deep Space Nine to find the promenade conspicuously deserted. He wanders around until he finds the corpse of an anonymous Prylar hanging limply from the second level. Unsettled, Borelli passes by a non-functioning computer terminal and finds Major Kieran erasing the stairway to the second level, dressed for a spring ball and bouncing a ball against the wall with her paddle. "Want to play?" she offers, although he's dressed in his Vedic robes. He looks back at the Prylar's body and desperately asks Nerys to help him. "All right," she replies in an impatient tone. Kira runs up the stairs to the second level of the promenade and approaches the rope from which the corpse is hanging. As she cuts the rope, the corpse falls to the ground and Borelli comes closer and recognizes the body as Prylar Beck. However, Nerys disagrees, claiming it is Borelli as the orb experience ends. He closes the orb shut and looks distraught. Borelli stands shirtless in his guest quarters on Deep Space Nine, gazing at the stars from his viewport, when Kira wishes him good morning as she embraces him from behind. He remarks that he thought she would sleep until noon, after which Kira reminds him he is supposed to be relaxing. He reassures her he is very relaxed and asks how she is feeling. She claims she's miserable because she wishes he could stay longer. After pretending to consider the issue for a moment, Borelli declares that he will do so for a few more days. However, the election of the Bajoran Kai is at hand. Election Kira is sure Borelli will win. After all, it is common knowledge that Borelli was Kai Opaka's handpicked successor before she became stranded in the Gamma Quadrant. Hearing Opaka's name seems to weigh on Borelli's mind. He assures Kira that he can never replace Opaka, for without Opaka, Bajor would not have survived the occupation. Whatever's on his mind, it is lost on Kira. As she embraces Borelli, she realizes that the two of them will not have nearly as much time together once he becomes Kai. Borelli reassures her that he will always make time for her, although he acknowledges that doing so will not be easy and promises Kira he will never lose her. On the promenade near the temple, Vedic Gwyn finishes talking to a group of young children, telling them, "Honor the prophets and they will love you," as Borelli and Kira approach. Borelli politely reminds Gwyn that the prophet's love is unconditional and they ask for nothing in return. Gwyn thanks him, with equal politeness, for reminding her how easily the sacred text can be misinterpreted. The tension between the two of them is evident as Gwyn remarks that she was unaware of Borelli's presence on the station, but, on observing Kira, asks that she is not surprised. Borelli claims he would not try to surprise her, and Gwyn notes that she has been watching him closely. Gwyn sees something wrong with this, as the eyes of all of Bajor are on the expected future Kai. Kira jumps in on hearing this and eagerly asks if Gwyn is announcing her intention to concede the race for Kai. Gwyn, however, points out that the choosing is still 2 days away and the prophets may still have a surprise in store. Kira suspiciously asks what the purpose of Gwyn's visit is to be, but Gwyn politely responds that the prophets had wanted Kira to know how she would come. She would have told her. In any case, Kira plans to warn Constable Odo to increase station security. Gwyn reassures Kira that she believes she will be quite safe. Kira counters by clarifying that extra security is enough for Gwyn's protection. Indignant, Gwyn asks Kira what Kira is implying, but really assures her it was nothing. Knowing when to back down, Kira agrees that her comment was innocent, but acknowledges Kira's belief that she orchestrated the attempt on Borelli's life the year before. But she says she prays the Major will be cured of this unfortunate misconception, a prayer Kira assures Gwyn will never be answered. Meanwhile, an elderly Bajoran man walks along the promenade carrying a bag. Another Bajoran, Eblan, bumps into him and apologizes for the mistake before looking back with recognition. He gently grabs the older man's arm, identifying him as Kubus Oak, a traitor who worked for the Cardassians during the occupation. Kubus angrily tries to get past the younger man, but Eblan loudly announces Kubus' identity to the entire promenade. Odo intervenes as the crowd begins to form and asks what is going on. Upon seeing Kubus, Odo recognizes him immediately. Odo claims he was under the impression Kubus was currently living on Cardassia, but Kubus says he has simply decided to return home. "Welcome back," Odo greets him sarcastically. "You're under arrest." As Odo escorts Kubus to the security office, he seems to recognize Vedic Gwyn. has observed the incident intently. Another orb experience. A group of Vidics are gathered on Bajor as Borelli, new like to Kai Bajor, emerges from a nearby doorway. "The prophets have spoken," proclaims Win. "All blessings on the new Kai." The other Vidics echo her sentiments in unity, chanting a blessing to Borelli. Borelli seems pleased if somewhat unsure of himself until Kai Opaka appears in a flash of light. Opaka tells him he must be strong now more than ever. Borelli asks why Opaka left him, to which she tells him all is as the prophets will it to be, and asks him to follow her. Excuse me. Before he can do so, Win warns that Opaka's path is a narrow one. Although Borelli does not believe he deserves to walk in Opaka's path, Opaka warns him that such is his destiny. He walks toward her slowly as Priolar Beck approaches carrying a small round box. Telling Borelli it is a gift from the prophets, he opens it to reveal a venomous snake. Borelli hesitates shortly, but Opaka assures him the snake's venom will make him strong. He removes the snake to find a noose, and as he does so, the orb experience ends. Secretary Cuba sits in holding cells. Odo informs him that extra security was needed to prevent a mob from forming outside. Cubas tells him he was always good at his job. Odo counters, pointing out that Cubas was equally skilled at his job as the liaison officer between the Cardassian forces and the government of Bajor. Defending his actions, Cubas claims that the situation of Bajor would have been 10 times worse if he and the other officials had not cooperated with the Cardassians. However, Odo fails to see how Cubas, who spent most of his time aboard Terek Nor, would know. Though Cubas claims he could not stand Gul Dukat, describing Bajor's former prefect as an arrogant tyrant, Odo reminds him that Dukat once described Cubas as his favorite Bajoran. Obviously burdened by the weight of his terrible actions, Cubas admits that he should never have left Bajor. "But you did," says Major Kira as she interrupts their conversation, "and you're going to have to live with that decision." Odo introduces Kira as the highest-ranking Bajoran on the station, and when Cubas requests an audience, she tells him to make it quick as she does not enjoy talking to collaborators. Cubas asks that he be allowed to return home, a request Kira denies. The Livian Proclamation exiled all Bajorans who were part of the Bajoran occupational government, and Cubas' name was the 4th on that list. Kira adds that she personally believes that Cubas and the others got off too easily. Cubas is pleased with Kira, seeing no harm in allowing him to live out his few remaining years on Bajor. On hearing this, Kira angrily confronts Cubas with the fact that his signature was on numerous work orders, which were essentially death sentences, forcing Bajorans to mine ore for the Cardassians. As such, allowing him to return to Bajor would dishonor the memory of every Bajoran who died working in the mines. Vedic Win visits Commander Sisko in his office to inform him with some hesitance that some in Bajor believe the relationship between the two of them is not at all it should be. According to Win, she finds such inaccurate perceptions to be most disturbing. Sisko coldly asks whether such perceptions are inaccurate, although Win does not seem to think there's any reason for Sisko to believe otherwise. Sisko points out that Win once claimed he was sent to destroy Bajor. In an attempt to downplay this point, Win explains that she only meant Sisko was sent to test the faith of the Bajoran people, though she concedes that she was concerned about Bajoran's petition for Federation membership. However, when Sisko asks directly whether Win now supports the petition, Win simply replies that she will not oppose the will of the prophets. Sisko requests that Win tell the same to Bajor, so she suggests a joint appearance. Although Sisko knows she is attempting to garner support for a bid to become Kai, he agrees, suggesting an appearance the following week. Win benignly asks why they should wait, as the Vedic Assembly will allow them an immediate audience if the emissary of the prophets requested it. Sisko points out the obvious, that such an appearance now could be constructed as support for Win, and as a Federation officer, he is not permitted to interfere in internal Bajoran affairs. "What enlightened philosophy," Win replies. They both agree to an appearance the following week, although it is unclear whether either intends to follow through on it. Odo interrupts Kira to inform her that Secretary Cubas is about to leave for Bajor, because Win has granted him sanctuary. Kira immediately contacts Dask, who was just about to clear windshield for departure, and tells her not to release the docking clamps until she orders her to. Proceeding to the security office, Kira learns that Wynne spent approximately 10 minutes talking to Cubus before requesting the use of Odo's computer to access the library system. Although Odo was unsure of what Wynne looked up, she proceeded to contact the Bajoran Provisional Government and inform them of her intent to grant Cubus sanctuary. They discovered that Wynne requested information on Prylar Beck, the liaison between the Vedic Assembly and the Cardassian Occupational Forces, and a known associate of Cubus. On a hunch, Kira tells Odo to check whether Wynne accessed information on the Kendra Valley massacre, which she did. Odo suggests perhaps Cubus told Wynne something new about the massacre, but Kira is not sure what could be new. In the massacre, 42 Bajoran resistance members died, including Kaiopaka's son, because Beck gave away to the Cardassians the location of their cell. Beck later hanged himself, detailing what he had done in a suicide note. As Kira's explaining this, Wynne enters the office. Asking to speak with Kira in private, Wynne confronts her about detaining her ship and suggests that Kira allow her to depart immediately. Kira, who knows she cannot legally detain Wynne, assures the Vedic that she is free to go, but informs her that, in light of public sentiment towards Cubus, no ship carrying him can be allowed to depart without a thorough security sweep, including scans for nanotechnology, which could take days or even weeks. Both of them know the real reason for Kira's scans, so Wynne reveals to Kira that in exchange for sanctuary, Cubus has agreed to give her the name of the man responsible for the Kendra Valley massacre. And his common knowledge of Prylar Beck revealed the location of the encampment. Wynne informs Kira that Vedic Borelli ordered him to do so. What? Outraged at Wynne's accusation, Kira warns her that no one will believe the word of a convicted traitor such as Cubus. However, Wynne tells her that she never claimed to believe him. She simply wants to protect the sanctity of the Bajoran faith. Wynne claims her intention is not to grab power but to protect Bajor. Her sentiment as Kira is that Borelli is not a collaborator, where he elected Kai later revealed to be one. Bajor will be devastated. While Wynne has not yet condemned Borelli, she did not know who to trust with such a delicate investigation until now. However, she believes Kira is the perfect choice. Kira begrudgingly agrees to conduct the investigation so long as Wynne promises not to make the allegation public until it has concluded. In exchange, Kira promises to give Wynne her findings, whatever they may be. Kira, Wynne, and Cubus are gathered in a cargo bay when Kira asks Cubus if, during his association with Prylar Beck, he knew the man was a collaborator. Cubus says that Beck was not a collaborator, only a messenger between the Cardassians and the Vedic Assembly. In the weeks prior to Beck's suicide, Cubus observed that he had become erratic and was in constant communication with a then unknown source within the Assembly. Then after the massacre, however, Vedic Burley visited Beck for several hours, during which time Cubus could hear shouting through the station's bulkheads, coming from Beck's quarters. Beck hanged himself on the promenade shortly thereafter. Based on this, Cubus believed that Beck wanted to confess his betrayal, but Borelli forbid him to do so, which led to his suicide, a theory Kira regards as incredible. There could be a dozen explanations for Borelli's contact with Beck, and as Wynne points out, it is Kira's job to find which of them is true. Visibly troubled, Kira contacts Borelli through her desktop monitor, who admits coming to the station to meet with Beck on the day in question. While he denies any involvement in the massacre and seems sure Wynne will not be able to prove anything, Borelli cannot reveal what he and Beck talked about due to confidentiality between monks and their Vedics. She solicits Odo's help, but as the Cardassians removed all communications logs on their withdrawal from Bajor, Odo must establish a link with the Bajoran Central Archives. As he does so, he observes how troubled Kira is. While she says that she knows Borelli is not guilty, she admits she is still afraid he might be. Kira's in deep thought as Odo contacts the Bajoran Central Archives. After a few seconds, she admits both to Odo and herself that she loves Borelli. As she says this, a pained look appears on Odo's surprised face. Although Kira's faces it all pensively and fails to notice. He stutters with his response, and Kira turns to him, wondering if something is wrong. But he covers his true feelings with one of his usual observations on the frivolity of humanoid relationships. I was just wondering when you were going to figure that out, he explains of her feelings for Borelli. Once Odo accesses the archives, he discovers that the records from Prylar Beck and the Assembly before the week prior to the Kendra Valley massacre had been sealed. However, he is not able to determine who sealed the records, only that there is a security seal present. Only one thing is certain. Only a Vedic could have placed the seal there. Dun dun dun. Kira and Odo visit Quark's, against Kira's better judgment, where they find the Ferengi entrepreneur reluctantly paying one of his Dabo girls. As Quark hands out 10 strips of latinum, the busty one gives him a look and he is forced to add 4 more, after which he kisses his bald forehead and walks off. I hate payday, he comments to himself before he realizes Kira and Odo are standing directly behind him. Grasping his latinum container, Quark says, Whatever she told you, I didn't do it. The two of them take perverse pleasure in Quark's visible discomfort at seeing them. When Odo tells Quark to relax, the Ferengi claims to have developed a persecution complex because of them, asking what they want and how much trouble it will cause him. Kira reassures him that they only want him to break a security seal and it will cause no trouble at all. To which Quark asks in a rhetorically innocent tone, Isn't that illegal? He refuses to help them and cites the 285th World Acquisition. No good deed goes unpunished. On hearing this, Odo grabs Quark by the shoulders and leads him over to the computer terminal behind the bar with an air of sibling rivalry. Quark removes the panel on the computer and asks Odo, as Odo tells him he can gain access to the Vedic assembly files via the central archives. A strategy Quark dismisses as amateurish. As he inserts the data right into the computer begins to configure it, Odo leans in to observe. Giving the changeling indignant look, Quark rubs Odo by the shoulders and escorts him from behind the bar, showing both him and Kira away. It will take time for him to break the security seal. Just so say Quark's, Odo brings Kira to the spot where Beck hanged himself, observing that, while he did not know Beck well, he thought he was a good man. Kira points out good men do not betray their own people, but Odo tells her that given the fact of extreme circumstances, even the best humanists are capable of committing horrible acts. Quark interrupts the conversation and gestures them over to announce he was able to break through the security seal. However, upon doing so, he discovers the files in question were empty as someone had erased all the message logs. Chief O'Brien helps Kira search for a way to retrieve the lost data contained in the erased logs. While data is still stored in the computer memory after deletion, the data fragments could hypothetically be unscrambled and pieced together. He warns her that to do so would take more time than they have. However, he thinks that he might at least be able to pinpoint who erased the information. The accompanying retinal scan was deleted along with the logs, but like the logs, it is possible to piece the scan together from data fragments. Kira is obviously lost as he shows her the mathematical representation of the data fragments while the computer attempts to form an image. After O'Brien finishes, the computer finds the match and fills in the missing pieces of the retinal scan to reveal who erased the logs. Vedic Borelli. Dun dun dun. Borelli has another orb experience, in which he revisits the image of his inauguration as Kai. His vision flashes back to the Bajoran temple aboard DS-9, where Beck confronts him accusingly. You, the Prowler screams. I trusted you. I needed you. You let me die. Now Borelli's in his quarters just as he was earlier, with Kira's arms again embracing him from behind. He turns around to kiss her, only to discover he has kissed a naked Vedic Gwyn. With a grin, she tells him he will be rewarded. He suddenly finds himself on Badger as Kira comes towards him seductively, claiming she has a gift from the prophets. Borelli seems cautiously yet pleasantly surprised, but as she is closing in, she stabs him in the stomach. As he collapses, Kaiopaka catches him. May the prophets comfort you, my child, Opaka tells him softly. May they comfort us all. Kaiopaka watch as Borelli loses consciousness and awakens from the orb experience, as there is a knock on his door. It is Kira, who is obviously in pain and has come to find the truth. The truth, Borelli concedes, is not always easy to recognize. Kira tells him that she recognizes it, but she does not like what she sees, just asking why he erased the transmission records. Please, don't make me do this, Borelli begs her, but she sees no other choice. She still seems to maintain some hope that Borelli is innocent, confronting him with the charges against him, ordering Beck to reveal the location of the base, therefore killing 43 Bajorans, including Kaiopaka's son. Upon hearing this, Borelli turns away and relates how the Cardassians were determined to wipe out the resistance in the Kendra Valley, preparing to kill 1,200 innocent Bajorans in the area. He felt he had no choice. Kira, near tears, says Wynne will destroy him now, but he corrects her. He has destroyed himself. Solemnly entering Ops, Kira asks for a status report, and O'Brien tells her everything is under control. Jack's reports that Vedic Gwyn is waiting for her on an urgent subspace frequency. As she already knows what the message is about, Kira accepts it in Ops. Vedic Gwyn has been waiting for a response, but before Kira can say anything, Gwyn congratulates her on a job well done. She already knows the result, as Burley has made a surprise announcement in which he withdrew himself in the Bajoran choosing ceremony. Acknowledging Kira's plan, Gwyn reassures her that what she did was for the good of Bajornats. Whoever is chosen tomorrow to be the new Kai will owe you a debt of gratitude. As she realizes the ramifications of Burley's actions, Kira seems to be deep in thought. Dex asks if she is all right, but Kira points out the scenario does not make sense. Soliciting O'Brien's help, she accesses the Vedic Assembly archives once more. Back on Bajor, while the Vedic Assembly performs the choosing ceremony, Kira waits outside impatiently, already knowing how it will end. A number of Vedics exit the building, followed by a pair of prowlers escorting Kai Wynne. Grasping Kira's ear, Wynne says Kira's paw is strong and reassures her that, in time, she'll never see as an enemy. I hope that's true, Kira says solemnly. I know you do, Wynne replies, adding that she must postpone her planned appearance with the emissary of the prophets, at least for now. She walks away as the rest of the Vedics exit the building. Once the crowd is cleared, Vedic Burley emerges, surprised to see Kira. Having finally discovered the truth, Kira reveals in his quest to purge the evidence of after the massacre, Burley forgot about the transit files. He is unsure of what she means, so Kira tells him that the transit files for the time surrounding the Kendra Valley massacre prove he was not a collaborator. During the time in question, Burley was on a personal retreat at the Dakin monastery, during which time he had contact with virtually no one. She was even verified the transmissions log for the monastery and confirmed that the sole transmission was an incoming one recalling Burley to Bajor after the incident. Thus, with any doubt, Burley cannot be the traitor. He tries to stop her as she speaks, but Kira refuses to be silenced. The real traitor had to have been someone dear to Burley, someone more importantly Kira herself or his desire to become Kai. Burley pleads with her as she continues. Once they both know what she's talking about, Kira sees no reason not to say it. The only person dear to Burley was Kai Alpaca herself. As Kira speaks, Burley looks down at his feet. Alpaca logically knew where the base was located because her son was a member of that resistance cell. She sacrificed him and 42 other resistance members to save the lives of 1,200 people. So, Kira says, now we have Wynne to lead us. Taking on a tone mockingly reminiscent of that which Wynne often uses, Burley replies, "It's the will of the prophets." Kira wonders where Wynne will lead the Bajoran people. Burley admits that the future is uncertain. Whatever future holds in store, Wynne will need their help. Kira asks what this means for her relationship with Borelli. He counts by asking where she wants it to go. She replies by embracing him, and after a few brief kisses, the two of them walk away together to go pay their respects to the new Kai. So finally, let's take a look at the background information of this episode, beginning with story and script. Gary Holland's original idea for this episode involved an elderly male Bajoran who had been living on Cardassia for many years and wanted to return home to Bajor. It discovered during the episode that this Bajoran has some kind of dark secret, and Kira is assigned to find out what it is. At first, it seems as if the secret may be the man is the murder of Kira's father, but later transpires that the murderer is in fact his daughter, and he is covering up for her. Had Burley become the Kai of Bajor, events that transpired in later episodes would have been radically different. The most prime example is Wynne's consultation of the Book of the Cost Amoljan, which she told Dukat / Angel Tanan was for her eyes only as Kai, and the subsequent release of the Pa raids in the fire caves. Indeed, the original plan was that Borelli become the Kai, but the writers changed their minds at the last minute. As Iris D. Rivera explains, quote, "We talked all year about Borelli becoming the next Kai, all year, and during this conversation, we started talking about a collaborator, and soon realized we don't Borelli as the Kai. What the hell good is that going to do us? He's a friend, and he's not going to cause any trouble for the Federation. The director drama is to find the person who's going to cause the most conflict to put him in the most powerful position. Writer Gary Holland was surprised how Odo reacted to finding out that Kira loved Borelli, as that was not how he had written the scene. Like many fans, he took it as an indication that Odo was secretly in love with Kira, and that the secret passion directly influenced Holland to write Children of Time, the episode where Odo finally reveals the truth. And now on to the production of this episode. Gary Holland visited the set during production and viewed the scene with Avery Brooks and Louise Fletcher being filmed. Holland commented, quote, "I wanted that scene all along, to have the two of them together, acting toe-to-toe. Avery Brooks saw me and screamed my name across the soundstage. 'Gary Holland, this is yours!' At that moment I thought, this is funny. I can't believe this is happening. It was so satisfying to be a part of it all." And now finally, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. When Kira tells Odo she is in love with Borelli, Odo reacts a little strangely, and many fans cite this as the first direct hint of his feelings for her. However, he later admitted that he loved her in the third season episode Heart of Stone, only to discover he was talking to the female changeling. He would ultimately go on to reveal his feelings to the real Kira in the fifth season episode Children of Time. Due to the threats posed by the Klingon Empire in the Dominion War, it was not until the sixth season episode His Way that Odo finally asked Kira out. This is the first episode in which the Bajoran occupational government is mentioned. It was previously implied that the Cardassians simply eliminated the Bajoran government altogether during the occupation of Bajor. The Living Proclamation, which sentenced all collaborators to exile, is also revealed. This marks Camilla Saviola's first appearance since her character chose to remain in the Gamma Quadrant in the first season episode Battle Lines. She returned once more in Orb Shadow in the fourth season episode Accession, but physically, Opaka presumably remained in the Gamma Quadrant. The visible tension between Wynn and the crew of DS9 is left over for Wynn's attempt to stop Keiko O'Brien teaching secular science to Bajoran school children. During a visit to the station, Wynn coerced a Bajoran engineer to try to kill Vedic Borelli, who opposed Wynn's way of thinking and threatened her popular support. However, as there was no evidence to prove her involvement, she was never indicted. The name of Kaiopaka's son was never revealed in the episode, although he was called Facile in the Star Trek Tarek Noor novel Night of the Wolves. According to the Star Trek Deep Space Nine companion, there are several Watergate parallels in this episode. For example, the scene where Quark helps Kira bypass the security lockouts, the pilot Beck character, who the companion claims is based on John Dean. For reference to Rules of Acquisition number 285, no good deed ever goes unpunished. Siddiq El-Fadil and Carol Gloff do not appear in this episode. Avery Brooks only appears in one scene, his discussion with Wynn. This was the final episode of DS9 to air during the run of Star Trek The Next Generation. The TNG finale All Good Things aired between this episode and the next. So overall, I think this is a pretty good episode, and it does make me wonder what would have happened if Borelli had become the next Kai instead of Wynn. So, yeah. So overall, I give the episode The Collaborator 4 warp cores out of 5. Well, anyway, till next time as we take a look at the next episode, or should I say the penultimate episode of Season 2, Tribunal. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.